when it's game over for the player, we actually need to do two things. The first thing is we need to clean up everything of our game, and the second thing is we need to load a game over screen, load up the or pass the score which we have, check if it has beaten the previous high score, and if so, update our high score. Let's first start with cleaning our game, which is it's going to be quite some stuff, but let's start with it. So let's tell our game to clean up. Then we go to our game class, and it will say, there is no function cleanup. So let's do that. We'll go and clean up here, and then there are two things which we will need to clean up, or actually more. Our background needs to be cleaned up, so we tell our background to clean up. We also remove that background. Then we have our spawners. Now let's go to our spawner itself. We would normally have more spawners. So let's say you'd have let's set it up how we'd want it for the game. So we'll have a meteor spawner. Yeah, it will spawn 10, but it will be separated every 5 seconds. No, let's let it spawn 50. Then we'll also have a diamond spawner. So let's create one. Which will spawn 5 over 20 seconds. 20 seconds. And you know what? Let's just let's make it a huge number, 500. Then we'll also have our laser spawner. So let's create one. Laser spawner is a new spawner which will spawn lasers, and will spawn 300 every 7 seconds separated, but it will start only 5 seconds later. So let's still create those spawner variables. So a laser spawner, a diamond spawner. Alright, so now we have our spawners, and when we would do cleanup, we would tell each spawner to clean up. So let's just copy this line. Just change this to laser, and that one to diamond, and then also remove those. Let's just copy the word spawner, so we can type like so. Alright, so now we have our cleanup functions being called in our meteor spawners, or in every spawner. However, we haven't yet created that function, so let's go to our spawner and let's create a public function clean up, which is going to set our start delay timer to null, our spawn delay timer to null, our class name to be null, our object class to be null, and it will remove all our space objects. So and after removing everyone, well, also space object array is null. We also tell every space object to clean up. So it will say access of undefined properties space object because it's space object array. Okay, now let's go to our space object class. We here have a private function cleanup. I think if we make it a public function, then we are actually done for our space object. So yeah, then we also have event listener, which we need to remove, namely beyond stage. Like so. And that's about it for our cleanup in our spawner class. And also in our space object class, we already did the background cleanup and the star cleanup. So we can also now remove event listeners of player hit friendly. Also can set our background to be null, our meteor spawner to be null, which also applies to our laser spawner and diamond spawner. We can make our player null. So we first tell our player to clean up, then we remove that player, and then we still set it to null. Let's go to our player class, which is here, and let's create a public function. Cleanup, which will set the microphone to null, and will remove the event listener, event enter frame, position player. Alright, so let's go back to our game. When we call the cleanup, we remove our background, our spawners remove every object cleans itself up, the player gets cleaned up, we remove that as well. I think that is alright, so let's go back to our main. Let's just see what happens when it is really game over. So we have only one life remaining, so if we hit something now, let's see what happens. Test. Everything stops. And let's see what's going on here. Yeah, it's just all errors that it can't access the properties, but to tell the truth, I'm fine with that because we do not need those properties because it's game over. So yeah, now let's still, when we are in our main class, let's still create a new game over screen. So let's do that here, private var game over screen. And we'll tell the game over screen that it's a new game over screen, and we'll add that as a child. And yeah, that's for now. This was the game cleanup. We're soon gonna work on the game over screen itself.